What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about World of Warcraft Classic, because something very baffling is currently going on within the game, which is that it seems as if a huge chunk of the player base is randomly starting to quit, and I want to try and analyze why. Now first and foremost, let me just say right up front, the game is not dead. There are still thousands and thousands of people playing every single day, hundreds of hours. I mean, this is a game that is still bright and vibrant, but it's been kind of strange to see a game go from the very pinnacle of MMORPGs down to more standard numbers. Now part of this is just because people wanted to try the latest and greatest thing. This happens with anything, but especially MMORPGs, which is where people want to log in and make a character, play for like a week, and then they get bored and move on. We call these people tourists. But something very separate has been happening within World of Warcraft Classic that I think is basically a confusion of difficulty. What I'm talking about is that leading up to the launch of World of Warcraft Classic, for literally years since it was first revealed, a lot of people were saying, you're not going to be able to handle this. It is going to be the Dark Souls of RPGs. This is going to be something so brutal and so tough that only the most seasoned veterans of players will even be able to survive a single fight. Now, when you say something like that, it obviously hypes up the difficulty to a certain degree, and a lot of the marketing really kind of emphasize that. If you watch the really cringy World of Warcraft commercials, they even say, welcome to a place where anything can kill you. I mean, it's pretty clear that we're supposed to think that all of this is pretty dang hard, when in actuality, now that a lot of us have had a chance to play the game, hit 60 and do a bunch of dungeons, we realize that it's actually super simple. This is a very easy game, but I think that it's for a reason that a lot of people didn't predict, which is there has been a fundamental rebalance of this game from the original version. Okay, so let's just throw this out there. Think about if you had actually sat down at a computer 15 years ago to play World of Warcraft. The original version of this game when it came out initially was actually kind of broken. It was fun, it was certainly addictive enough to become the most popular game on the planet during its era, but it also had just so many weird things. Classes would have useless talent points that if you specialized into would actually basically break your character. There was huge chunks of gear that didn't make sense. It was a game that had a lot of very technical issues that badly needed to get fixed, and over the course of years and a bunch of big updates, the developers really managed to refine it and make it a much more polished product. Well, the version of World of Warcraft Classic we're getting is this, the most polished and perfect version of WoW that ever existed. Now, going into WoW Classic, I think a lot of us understood that this is the thing we were buying. We were going to be buying a slightly different version of World of Warcraft than something we've played before. These are the earliest bosses. Currently, the game is on phase 1 of content, which means that we're fighting the guys that used to be the toughest encounters during that time period, but with a lot of the stuff that's actually from the later periods. We actually have better talent points, so we can do different stuff, we can fight more efficiently, but most importantly, I actually think that the main thing that's actually causing players to quit is one simple word: itemization. Now that sounds very tiny, it just sounds like we're talking about a little tiny technical issue, when in actuality, this single word is having a tremendous effect on the entire community because it's a situation that can't really be fixed. It can't really be changed or refined, because itemization is now a huge part of how this game works. Basically, in World of Warcraft, gear is very important. The items you equip actually give you a tremendous amount of extra strength, hit, the ability to actually target enemies, and even more health so you can live longer in tough fights. Well, we're playing with the most refined version of every single item. From the outside, that seems like a very tiny thing, and if anything, a giant benefit. It means that you're not going to be having, like, agility, which is good for hunters, on cloth gear that a mage would pick up. And so because of this, it actually means that every single thing in the game is dramatically stronger than it was. People are actually doing these little 5-man dungeons with just completely broken teams, because we're all so strong. Everybody in the entire server, the servers that are still alive, because the tiny servers are actually dying off, the the big servers now are having player bases that are able to nuke the entire content. Every boss, every dungeon, every single fight right now is a complete joke, and it's actually making people sort of question the difficulty of this game. Let me show you a specific example of what seems to be upsetting some players, and sort of making it where that drive to continue playing is sort of evaporated. So these are two different items that are very, very good for warlocks. The one on the left here, this is a green, very easily crafted item called Fellcloth Shoulders. It's something that pretty much everybody gets because it's just so simple to make. Whereas on the right, this is actually the Warlock Tier 1 Epic Loot, Fellheart Shoulders. While these have a ton of stats, and of course are purple, these are supposed to be the best item in the game. They're supposed to be the thing that takes the most work, they take the most dedication, they take the most coordination, but in actuality, the Fellcloth Shoulders, this dumb mid-50s green, is actually better in DPS. It is better because of that incredibly powerful spell damage added to it. What's going on within the game itself that I think is causing a lot of people to actually be a little bit turned off by it is the fact that everything right now is just so easy. Every fight. So this right here, this is called Ragnaros the Fire Lord. He is actually the toughest encounter in the entire game. Guilds used to get stuck on this fight for months, literally dying hundreds and hundreds of time, collectively spending thousands of golds on fire protection pots and gear for their tanks to make sure they could survive just one more hit. And now it's a joke. I mean, seriously, our team is doing this in greens like what I just showed you. My Fellcloth Shoulders completely nuke this giant dude, even though he is the literal Lord of Fire. And because of it, I think it's creating something where a lot of people are actually being turned off by it. There are always going to be players like myself who just enjoy playing the game. We enjoy killing the bosses. We enjoy logging in and leveling professions and doing PvP. But separately, I do think that a big chunk of the player base was very appealed by the idea of a super hard MMORPG, where one tiny mistake would cause 40 people in your raid group to instantly die, when in actuality, this game is a bit of a joke. Now, I think that what happens is there are going to be new players coming back. I think that what's happened is a huge chunk of the player base that has already quit, they're probably not going to return. They're tourists. These kind of players are often just drawn to the brightest light. They're constantly going to that next cool thing. So what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a very separate and very diehard group of WoW Classic players that are definitely going to stick with it for years and years and years. The player base right now is still doing a good job. People are thriving. If you are playing on one of the biggest servers, yes, okay, obviously things are more empty, but there's still people to play with. There's still groups. There's still giant dungeons. There's still stuff going on. It's definitely the smaller servers right now that are suffering the most. I hear about all the time now of people who rolled on a low population world only to discover now that there's just not enough people to actually do any of the major content. I think what's going to happen is everybody is going to have to slowly regrow the community. I think that probably Blizzard may try and do a server mitigation. They might try and take several of these low population groups and shove them together. That way it can make everything much more bright and vibrant again. I think that what needs to happen is people need to realize that the game is probably going to stay easy. Blackwing Lair is part of Content Phase 3. Then of course there's Anchorage in Phase 5 and Naxxramas in Phase 6. These are further raids that are increasingly difficult, increasingly big, increasingly epic. And I do think that people are going to eventually hit that challenge. But right now, I think that there is definitely a big chunk of players that just seem to be a little bit lost as to what they actually signed up for. This is not a hard game. If you're trying to play World of Warcraft because you think that this is going to be the best gaming experience of your life, it's fun. I'm not going to say that this game isn't fun. I mean, there's a reason I have so many hundreds of hours racked up in it already. But I'm just saying, if you're looking for something that's going to just blow your brains out with sheer, absolute, insane challenge, this ain't it. But what do you think? Have you actually been playing World of Warcraft Classic? And what do you think about the itemization? Are you a little bit confused as to why you're actually able to blow stuff up while wearing greens and the epics are actually something you keep in your bank? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Hey, if you're still playing the game, by the way, I am on Fairlina, the server Fairlina. So if for whatever reason, if your server actually died off and you're wanting to reroll somewhere else, level on my server. I actually keep running into subscribers, and honestly, I love it. You guys are great, and well, I'll see you on the battlefield. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.